In this video, I discuss why I think China has set its sights on war with Russia and explain who Rishi Sunak, likely the next Prime Minister of Britain, is. Hello friends, this is Unmasked Truth with Harmanjit Saini, where I provide unique analysis of world events based on the unmasked truth that after surrender, Germany continued World War II clandestinely and became a killing machine. I also provide true news that you will find nowhere else. The war in Ukraine is not going well for Russia, as President Putin had hoped. Though Ukraine civilians and soldiers are losing their lives almost daily and Russia has taken the Luhansk region, but is far from taking the whole of the Donetsk region and the Donbass, Ukrainians are inflicting casualties on Russian soldiers, particularly with the latest, more sophisticated, not vintage and surplus any longer, US-made high-mobility artillery rocket systems or HIMARS supplied by the United States and other weapons supplied by Britain, France and Germany. In the past few weeks, Russia has resorted to missile strikes on cities across Ukraine, killing civilians on a daily basis. Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has indicated that Russia's goals in Ukraine have changed. In an interview on July 20, 2022 with news agency RIA Novosti, Lavrov said that the geographical realities have changed. With Ukraine being supplied with sophisticated long-range weapons by the United States, Russia will not allow Ukraine to threaten its territory with these weapons. So its goal now is to go beyond taking the Donetsk and Luhansk regions, but also take Kherson and Zaporizhzhia regions and a number of other territories that Russian forces have wholly or partly seized. Russia is not hurting for money to fund the war because the West must continue to buy oil and gas from Russia. China and India are also taking advantage of the discounted cheap oil available from Russia. However, Putin's military capability is being degraded, as is evident from Russia importing military drones from Iran and Turkey. Sanctions are also beginning to bite. The West is not selling computer chips and other equipment which Russia needs to manufacture its own weapons. As one TV commentator put it, Russia is now seeing its equipment literally fall out of the sky as a result. This indicates that in a war of attrition where Ukraine continues to be supplied with ever more sophisticated weapons, Ukraine can keep Russian military tied down indefinitely. The war has solidified the NATO alliance such that all European nations are willing to help Ukraine to prevent a Russian victory. Russia is mad at the United States and Britain and British help for Ukraine, particularly supplying sophisticated long-range weapons. Therefore, on the diplomatic front, it is befriending US enemies. US President Biden visited the Middle East recently, meeting many Arab leaders and Israeli leaders to counter the Iranian threat and, if possible, to persuade them to supply more oil to the world markets so that the American consumer has some relief in the price of oil and inflation. To counter the solidifying US-Israel-Arab alliance, President Putin had a meeting with the leaders of Iran and Turkey, which is a NATO member. Both have also agreed to supply drones and other military equipment to Russia for its war effort. To counter US provocations and supporting Ukraine in its war effort, Russian leaders have again started voicing their view that they should take back Alaska from the United States that it sold in 1867, which is sure to create more bad blood between the two nations. With German mass graders placed in some of the highest positions in the United States government, they will continue to act in Germany's interests and against American and Russian interests. Of course, sectarian Chechen elements are quick to take advantage of the turmoil due to the war and are tempted to assert their independence. Fox News reported that at least two volunteer Chechen battalions, including veteran soldiers from both the First and Second Chechen Wars, have taken up arms against Russia in Ukraine, including the Sheikh Mansour Battalion and the Zokhar Dudayev Battalion. Both groups have been vocal in denouncing the leader of the Chechen Republic, Ramzan Kadyrov, who was appointed to the post in 2007 by Putin and has brutally backed his war efforts against Kiev. A spokesman for the Sheikh Mansour Battalion said the resistance group had divided Chechnya into three sectors and claimed to have begun working with local populations to uncover the enemy troop movements, type of transport, type of armaments, number of troops, and quantity of weapons. All these recent events lead me to conclude that Russia and America will most likely be on opposite sides in any conflict between either of them against the German Chinese Indian Muslim alliance, mainly due to the German masqueraders' outsized influence. That should be obvious from the fact that Germany instigated the war in Ukraine by clandestinely planning to install nuclear, chemical, and biological weapons in Ukraine to be used against Russia. However, almost all the weapons and aid to Ukraine is given by the United States and Britain to the tune of billions of dollars already, whereas Germany has spent very little to help Ukraine. Americans and the Britons are bending over backwards to do Germany's bidding to help the German masquerader Zelensky-led government. The situation in Britain is no better. German masqueraders in Britain have been in control of government for some years now, as is evident from their actions. They have sold their prime corporate assets such as Jaguar Land Rover and others to Prime Minister of India Narendra Modi's crony Tatas and given away British technology in the process as well. Now, to give their ally Modi's India more confidence, I would not be surprised if they elect an Indian, Rishi Sunak, as Britain's next Prime Minister. An Australian of Italian descent is already Australia's Prime Minister. Who knows where his true allegiance lies? But actions of Australian leaders over the past few years seem to indicate that just like the British, they are selling Australian assets to another of Modi's crony, Adani, who has been buying up coal assets and has established himself as a coal player in Australia as well. I was quite surprised to learn about Rishi Sunak claims that his ancestors are originally from Punjab state in India and Pakistan. Well, you will be surprised to learn that Rishi Sunak's ancestors did originally come from Punjab state, but they are Pathans, uh, known also as Pashtuns, most of who live in Afghanistan and equal number in Pakistan, and there are many masquerading around as Punjabis, both Sikhs and Hindus, in India. No wonder German masqueraders want to install him as the next Prime Minister of Britain. Just like the Germans, the Pathans have no qualms about mass murdering innocent people. Punjabis have a long and bloody history of dealing with them, with almost all the wanton bloodshed and killings coming from their side. Modi's confidence will be highly boosted if Sunak becomes the Prime Minister. The situation as it exists today leads me to believe that China and Germany are tempted to grab a chunk of Russia to take control of their energy and mineral needs, if not totally defeat Russia, take whatever territory they want, and install a masquerader-led government. In my videos of April 28, 2022, titled Amusing but Not Funny Update on the War in Ukraine and a Warning to Germany and China, and May 5, 2022 video titled Caution Against Being Too Trusting of Putin and Russia and His Jewish Background, I had indicated that China and Germany are contemplating attacking Russia and that US would intervene on behalf of Russia in its own interests. But events over the last nearly 3 months indicate that lack of trust between the United States and Russia has increased. There wasn't much to begin with after the US started helping Ukraine, but I thought that with the possibility of China and Germany planning an attack on Russia, Russians would want to draw closer to the United States. However, with continued vigorous United States support for Ukraine's war effort, masqueraders in the United States government are making sure that Russia has no reason to trust the United States. I had also stated that that prophecy does not indicate destruction of Russia because Russia is prophesied to be part of the Eastern Alliance that will field a 200 million man army to fight Germany and Europe. I need to modify that interpretation. Prophecy is mainly about how nations will interact with Israelite nations, meaning the United States, British Commonwealth nations, Israel, and Northwest Europe. It does not provide many details on how non Israelite nations will deal with each other. Thus, there is no specific prophecy indicating that China and Germany, as allies, will not come into conflict with Russia. They could attack Russia, but Russia would survive under different leadership to fulfill the prophecy concerning a 200 million man army. China and Germany are very opportunistic. Prophecy indicates a war between Germany and its allies against an alliance of United States, Britain, and Israel, in which Germany will be victorious. They have tried to start the Third World War by inveigling other nations to do so. China has tried to start it by instigating their ally Modi to massacre all Sikh soldiers, followed by the civilian population. They have tried to inveigle Iran to start a war with the United States. They have provoked Indonesia and Malaysia by shooting down their airlines, planes, and a submarine. Each time an attempt falls flat, they change their target. Since they have not yet succeeded in starting a war with the United States, and now vulnerable looking Russia presents a great opportunity, they have temporarily set aside the goal of fighting a war with the United States, and I believe they've started concentrating on taking Russia. In my earlier video, I had indicated that the USA would intervene if Russia was attacked. However, with the latest developments and growing bad blood between the two countries, the German masqueraders in the United States, indicating outsized control of US government, including British and Australian governments, neither of the two may intervene if the other is attacked. If either side is attacked or enters the war, both can be absolutely certain of facing a full-blown civil war. Russia has a very significant population of German masqueraders, perhaps to the tune of 20 to 25% of the population. I would expect them to be at least proportionately represented in the military, Russian military and law enforcement. Masqueraders like to ensure that their population and that of their allies in the United States even larger, and they are armed to the teeth. If China and Germany attack Russia, especially when engaged in a war in Ukraine and the Chechens threatening to go on the offensive, and the US tries to intervene, German masqueraders and their allies will immediately start a civil war in the United States, and German masqueraders in Russia will start a civil war in Russia. At present, there is an uneasy truce between German masqueraders in the United States and the other side. Small number of killings on either side go on, but neither side wants a larger conflict because a full-blown civil war will immediately erupt, which will not be contained until one side exterminates the other. I am certain the Germans and Chinese are making that calculation too, and probably like their chances against Russia. I am keenly watching developments in the war between Russia and Ukraine and will keep you updated with my analysis. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please continue to watch my videos and read my articles on important world events, World War III watch, politics, international business, advice on health and medical problems, and much more for in-depth and insightful analysis. Please also subscribe to my YouTube and Facebook channels, Unmasked Truth with Harmanjit Saini, to view and get information on the latest videos. Some people don't have the time to go through the full length of videos. They find it more convenient to read the text of the video. Unfortunately, YouTube does not provide the facility to make the text of my videos available on YouTube, but fortunately Facebook does provide that facility. So I make the text of my videos available on my Facebook channel, which you can easily copy.